everyone, and welcome to the Restaurant Operator Podcast. I'm Mandy Detweiler, editor of Pizza Marketplace and QSR Web. I'm here today with Dan Hawes, VP of Product Design at Givex, and we're going to be talking about AI. Dan, thanks so much for being with us today.
Oh, you're welcome. Nice to be here.
Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Okay. I work part-time as a research professor at Carleton University, focused on AI and immersive technology like virtual reality and augmented reality. And I also have a team of people that work on those similar experiences for Givex. And we really enjoy creating experiences that make people go, wow. And the great thing is AI is one of those technologies that just gives us that possibility.
Right. So as head of the AI design team that developed the application for Givex AI ordering kiosk, what were some of the features that you took into consideration in the design?
Yeah, so there's so many things to consider when you're looking at a new technology design, right? So we wanted to ultimately be cognizant of what it was that we were creating. So we wanted to create an application that effectively worked better than the current way of ordering. In this case, we were designing it for a kiosk. So there were a lot of different things. So, for example, the type of voice interaction was important. The overall experience, we had to manage for things like sound, but also the ambient sound. For environments like NRA, it's a very, very loud environment. So you have to design with that in mind. We had to decide whether we were going to use a character or not. So in some cases, characters are needed. In other cases, some people prefer not to. So one of the other companies that was demonstrating a similar technology didn't have characters. So we decided to use an animated character because we felt it would make it friendly and fun and help the engagement. So designing the character is obviously part of that. Designing the environment that the character operates within is part of it. And then the character persona. So what do you want that character to be like? Do you want the character to be direct and functional and terse, or do you want them to be friendly and fun? So these were all factors that we considered in the design.
So the Givex ordering kiosk, you actually showed it to me at the National Restaurant Association show. So tell us about conversational AI. What are the benefits for it?
So I think with conversational AI, one of the things that we're very excited about, the Givex team, is that it's very intuitive and simple. So we can customize it with different personas and different characters, and we can do whatever it is that is required to create that user experience. But you also have a lot of intelligence. So you have not only all of the information that's available related to that restaurant, the menu, the foods, but you also have a depth of intelligence available from the internet that is available and usable if required. And as such, you can solve problems in real time. It's a little bit more, the ability to improvise is something that you bring with this type of conversational AI that it's very, very hard to do unless somebody's very well trained or they have a deep base of knowledge. So that's important. The other benefits that people don't realize, and they will start to realize, is the idea of AI recommendations. So currently, the way AI recommendations work is, when you're on an app, there's a presentation of, a certain item that they suggest that you might want to purchase. And in order to do that, there's all this mathematical iteration going on in the back that creates this recommendation. It basically looks at all the more likely options of what you might order, and it presents you something. Well, with conversational AI, the server can just simply recommend something that's a lot more intuitive. It's kind of like when the server's at your table and say, hey, I suggest this wine would be a great pairing with, that steak.
Right.
So it feels more authentic, and I think it's going to have more impact on the recommendations, the overall efficacy.
Yeah, it was very cool the way you showed me, if you had like a sour stomach, it could show you a ginger tea, perhaps. You might want to order that. Yeah, that was very cool.
Yeah.
Based on user testing, what interface type do customers prefer?
That's a good question. So I guess it's also one of those things that you can't say for sure because different demographics, different personality types have different preferences. But we found, based on the iteration that we had at the show, that people were loving that human-like interface. They were liking the ability to have a discussion. So there's something called implicit ego bias in academia, where people tend to like that which is similar to them. So one example of it is if you have Lewis in your name, you're 7 times more likely to live in St. Louis than somebody who doesn't. So these are kind of implicit ego biases. And similarly, when we interact with even an animated character, we like people that are like us because that's just human. It's our predisposition. So like a Gen X and a Gen Y they'd like a character like them, but they're more terse. They like functionality, they like speed. Whereas somebody who's older, who's their entire life they've interacted with servers, they're going to prefer something a little friendlier. And that's what we found. So there is no one interface, but in general, we've found that the friendlier and the more personable and the more authentic feeling, the more popular that interface is.
What did you learn about UX design and applications, and how did you apply it to the Givex AI kiosk?
Yeah, so UX design is something I've been doing for many, many years. And I think it's really just the user experience. And it doesn't matter what you're creating. I don't care if you're creating a presentation for an automobile or any piece of software. You really are thinking about the user experience. And as much as we think there is one sort of penultimate user experience, it is still somewhat subjective. The things that I look for, the more general functionality, the more general elements are simplicity. So simplicity is key. Functionality. So you've got to be able to do it simply. It has to be functional, and the aesthetics. So a good design often trumps a bad design in terms of aesthetics. And even though people say, well, it doesn't really matter how it looks, there's lots of research that suggests if people like the design of what they're seeing, there's something that happens and they're more accepting of the design and less likely to make mistakes. So there is a lot of research in that domain. So context, I guess the next thing is the context is all. So you have to be very sensitive to your environment. So for example, if you're designing a cockpit for an airplane, you want to make sure that things like the safety elements or safety notifications are very, very salient, right? So that, if something happens, you get alerted to that. But if it's, you're involved in an enjoyable experience, you probably don't want to have notifications like that. So the context of an experience is important. And that's something that you're always factoring in. So I also use a very simple methodology called CRAP when I'm looking at user interface designs, and it stands for context, repetition, alignment, and proximity. So always aware of the context of a situation. There's 2 C's, context and contrast. So you want things to stand out that are different so people can see them. You want repetition. So things that are important, you want repetition. So sometimes people have 2 or 3 ways of getting to a certain result. You want alignment because people, I don't know if you are, but I'm OCD, but people don't like things that are poorly aligned. And proximity, things that are similar in nature should exist in a similar area spatially. So it's CRAP. That's one of the things that we use. And the other thing about design that I think is very important is there is no immediate design that is ready to go. It's an iterative process. And design, really, the first iteration of design creates the artifact, and that artifact becomes a discussion element that's going to help you improve the next design element. So it's an iterative discussion, and that's what we're hoping to do with this one. Put it out there, let people try it, and learn as we go. And so design is iteration and continually having that discussion. And that discussion happens even after products are created. Then you're thinking about version 2, and you always have to be listening to what people are saying in the environment, because there may be an opportunity, or you may have screwed up on something, which we've done before,
So we've seen AI just really explode in the restaurant industry.
Right.
We're seeing it in drive-throughs. We're seeing it when you're taking orders. What is the future of conversational AI in the restaurant industry, do you think?
Yeah, I mean, that's a good question. I think it's everything. I think you're going to see it everywhere because the technology is there. It's so easy to connect a back end intelligence into a front end personable experience and do so at a fraction of the cost of the existing industry. And by the way, it's an industry that's very cost sensitive, right? So I think you're going to see it everywhere. I also think you're going to see conversational AI or augmented AI with real servers. So real servers are going to be there in the context of serving somebody for perhaps in a restaurant, a full serve restaurant, and they will have access in their ear to information that may be relevant. And the AI may be listening and saying, hey, maybe you should suggest this wine. So I think conversational AI will both be delivered via avatars and, characters that are human, but it'll also be available to people, to existing servers, to augment their knowledge base.
Are there any other AI developments in the restaurant industry that you're especially excited about?
Yeah, I think recommendations. So the ability to have better information about people and create recommendations that are delivered in a friendly manner that takes those data analytics and adds value to them and then presents them. I think that's part of conversational AI, but that whole recommendation system will, I think, become much more effective. I think immersive tools like augmented reality and virtual reality will also dramatically change the nature of the restaurant purchasing experience. I think people will be able to put on a headset or even a very limited headset and go shopping and be able to see things and experience things that they could not otherwise experience, right? Wow. So I think immersive technologies are going to be a big part of that conversation. I think on the back end, while we're interfacing with conversational AI, there are going to be agents. And we actually use these agents in our particular application where the agent could say, you could give an instruction to an agent to go to that particular store and order me a Big Mac. So whereas today, you'd have to log on to your Mac app or your Big Mac or your not Big Mac app, but McDonald's app. And you would go there and you would order something. And there's a fairly good experience. But I see a point in the future where you have the everything app where I'm just sitting there and I'm thinking, what should I have for lunch? What do I feel like for lunch? And then there's going to be a discussion where my AI might say, well, have you thought about McDonald's has got a 2-for-1 deal? Why don't you order me 2 Big Macs from McDonald's? And,
wow.
And so now I've just got a conversational discussion going on, and that agent is going to go in, it's going to log on to McDonald's. It'll probably talk to another agent at McDonald's, and that agent will, fulfill the order, and I will get either a message that you can pick your stuff up at McDonald's, or it's coming via skip the dishes or whatever mode of transport, right?
Sure.
So I think that everything app is going to be a big factor because it makes sense. It simplifies a lot of the things that we really don't want to do. Like if I want something, I'd rather just say what I want. And if that's taken care of by the AI or the combination of AI and these agents, then to me, that's an improved experience. So those are things that I'm excited about.
How does the Givex AI ordering kiosk change the economics of its customers? Is this a potential cost savings or revenue increase?
Yeah, that's a good question because at the end of the day, that's what it's all about. So I think if you're able to solve the same problem with no labor, and we'll talk about the impact of labor secondly, but if you're able to, so you're going to lower the overall cost of delivering that service, that should result in lower prices for the customer. So typically that might allow the customer to enjoy something at a lower price, possibly increasing demand for that product, right? Because now I can get, for 30% less, I get more of what I want. I think if you're using this type of technology, you can put things through quicker. So there's more volume and throughput. And you have a better experience. So that experience should result in more demand and more revenues over the long run. So at the end of the day, the restaurants like to talk about margin. So less cost to the customer and more margin to the restaurant. So I think that's a very positive impact to the restaurant. And that is a big driver in the industry because it's a very costly business to run.
Are you concerned that these services will take jobs away from young people?
So I think in the short run, there will be some displacement. In my experience, a lot of restaurants are actually having difficulty staffing these positions. More often than not, people can't can't staff their drive-through. And I'm seeing sometimes owners working the drive-through because they can't actually hire people. So is there going to be a displacement? Absolutely. But I also think that the displacement will enable the next generation of experiences. So one example I always use when we talk about this is the auto industry. So when the Model T Ford came out, everybody said, oh my God, everybody who makes horse accessories and carriages are done. Right. And they were, by the way, but now it created an auto industry, which was 100 times bigger. And that auto industry enabled experiences that would never have existed. Like the family can drive 50 miles and go to a theme park, right? Go to Disney, or you have local travel and tourism. It increased range for people to have all sorts of experiences. So I think what you'll see in the future is as these more mundane methodical experiences are automated, people are able to think about the next generation of opportunities. I think there's going to be lots of building and creation in immersive realities. I think people are going to be traveling the galaxies. So I think a lot of these things are going to enable possibilities that we're probably not even thinking about. So I'm generally an optimist, and I'm more I lean towards more of an accelerationist. I think if this type of technology is applied sooner, it is going to solve more problems than it creates, but it also has to be done thoughtfully, right? With, a view to the fact that there is going to be short-term impact, and that has to be managed. So,
well, this has been excellent. Thank you so much for being with us today.
Well, thanks, Mandy.
That'll do it for this episode of the Restaurant Operator Podcast, and we'll catch you next time.